All right, so my name is Skylar and I'm a trans woman. And I'm doing my very first live stream today to help celebrate the fact that my channel got over 500 subscribers. And I'm really excited for this moment because this is a huge milestone for me personally. I started this channel like over 8 years ago now. And back then I was trying to help basically educate the public on trans issues and why trans rights are so important. I typically only had, growing up, been exposed to conservative viewpoints around LGBT issues. And so it really was a little bit challenging for me when I was coming to terms with my own gender identity as an adult, because when all you're ever told is trans people are this or trans people are that, you end up internalizing a lot of that negative stereotyping. And so coming out for me was a really huge challenge. And I'm honestly very happy that I was able to get over that hurdle, because I know a lot of people in that similar situation probably would have struggled a lot more. Um, I take it as a testament to my own perseverance to be able to overcome my denial of being trans, as well as sort of deal with the public harassment and the transphobia that I've uh, had leveraged against me over the years. I genuinely am a happier person now because I am my authentic self, and being the person that I am sitting here before you today talking into the microphone, it's really awesome. It's really awesome how far I've come, because if I had gone back in time and told myself when I was 18, 19 years old that this is where I was going to arrive at in my life, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have said, no, there's no way. There's no way that you are going to. It just didn't seem like the dichotomy between where I was then and where I am now is so black and white and so different that I'm genuinely shocked how far I've come, and I'm really proud of myself. And so overcoming my own challenges has kind of motivated me to help pursue helping others, by basically sharing my story and letting people know that being trans is something that's completely normal, and it's just an inherent part of the human condition. And I wouldn't trade anything in the world for being trans. I honestly, it is the single most defining trait about me as far as my journey. Now, obviously, there's like, I'm a multidimensional person. So, it's not like being trans is the only thing that matters. But one thing that I've learned is that you have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself permission to feel vulnerable sometimes and allow yourself to open up to new ideas and possibilities. Because when you start off from the position that you already have all the answers, you're never going to grow. You have to accept that sometimes you too can be wrong. And that's not a bad thing. You know, when I was going through my denial, I said to myself over and over again, this can't be because I don't want it to be. I can't be trans because I don't want to be trans. But once I started to realize that it's not something that you choose, it's not something that you have any control over. It's something and I'm sure scientists and psychologists and biologists over the years, is it is being trans, part of this genetic feature, or is it, this upbringing, or is it this combination? And honestly, I'm sure in 100 years from now they'll have some sort of like answer or something more concrete as far as like, this is the reason why people are transgender. This is the reason why people have this type of life experience. But honestly, I don't think that should matter. Like, even if we got to a place where people are like, okay, we know for sure it's a genetic thing, or it's this thing, or it's a combination of these things. And when these certain things happen, and then you get a trans person. Well, that still shouldn't invalidate the transgender experience. That shouldn't still make it so that trans people aren't still valid human beings. And being trans isn't something that is an anomaly. It's not something that's inherently a mistake, like a genetic mistake, or it's not something that people look at and they're like, oh, well, I guess genetics or evolution didn't favor you correctly. No, I genuinely believe that being trans is just a natural variation of the human condition. The same way that somebody being born left-handed. Now, the majority of people are predominantly right-handed. They write with their right hand. They use their right hand when they're the majority. That is the fact. The majority of people are right-handed. But then you have a certain percentage of the population that is just left-handed. And there was actually a time in our society, which was not too long ago, maybe like a little over 100 years ago, where being left-handed itself was actually frowned upon by society. And there were people that thought that you had to correct somebody being left-handed and teach them how to be predominantly right-handed. Now, that sounds really silly looking back nowadays, but that was pretty standard practice back then. People genuinely thought that you're supposed to be right-handed, and if you're not, that's a defect. Something's wrong there. And then when we realized, oh, wait a minute, somebody's left-handed, why does that matter? Like, it's not affecting them in any way. It's just different. It's a different variation. And yes, thank you, Christopher. It is a natural variation, just like being trans. And what we found is that once society stopped stigmatizing people that were born left-handed and stopped discouraging people from being left-handed and just let people be, the number of people that identified as being left-handed just naturally went up. Now, that doesn't mean that because the stigma went away that people converted from being right-handed to left-handed. No, it just meant that the certain percentage of the population that was predominantly left-handed, that had to hide the fact that they were left-handed, felt like, oh, well, I can just be myself now. I can just be left-handed and I don't have to be mistreated or misjudged for that. And so you see a percentage of the population self-identifying as left-handed going up and up and up. But then it finally reached a point after several decades where it just plateaued and it just stopped. And I can't remember the actual percentage. It's something like 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. But once it hit that percentage, it just stopped going up, which means that was just the natural number of people that were just predisposed to being left-handed. It's not like right-handed people suddenly became left-handed. It's not like people that were cisgender became transgender. They just realized, oh, well, this is just a natural variation. And so, yeah, that's why you're seeing the population, the self-identification of people identifying as transgender going up, because it's a similar result of, like, back then, people that were left-handed that were basically in the closet about being left-handed. When they finally could come forward and just be their authentic self, yes, that number just naturally went up. But then it plateaued. And at a certain point, going forward in our history, as being transgender becomes less stigmatized and is just accepted by society in general, we'll see the same thing happen. The number of people that will self-identify as trans will go up and up and up. And then at a certain point, it'll just stop and it'll just plateau, because that's just the natural number of the people that were always trans. And I'm really glad that we have something like that to look back on, and research data to show, like, well, because we can compare and contrast and say, like, well, this is the exact same thing, you know? And there's people that are like, well, but, oh, trans people haven't always existed because, people haven't had access to gender affirming care until early 20th century. Well, I mean, medically, yes, but historically, people that actually look back into, like, all the way back into Mesopotamian era of human civilization, they were finding people that were genetically male that lived predominantly female roles in their society. Like, yes, the meme that I see sometimes is like, oh, well, when archaeologists dig up your skeleton hundreds of thousands of years from now, they're going to test your DNA and they're going to know because of your bone structure that you are male. So you're not fooling anybody. But no, we can already look back hundreds of years into the past of archaeological discoveries in ancient civilizations that don't even exist anymore, and find that there were people back then who existed in gender nonconforming roles, people in societies who were revered for their ability to basically cross the barrier between the binary of male and female gender social construct. And that's just the proof. So, like, I don't like to tell anybody, like, oh, well, like, I think your opinion is dumb, or I don't stoop down to that level. I always like to present information that kind of contradicts the point that the other person is trying to make, just to show that, hey, well, if what you're saying is true, here's an alternative that kind of says the exact opposite. So you're kind of proving them wrong by showing them the actual proof that they're wrong without saying that they're wrong, and letting them decide. Because I found that if you try to convince somebody of somebody, or if you try to convince somebody of something, they're going to shut down, because humans naturally just do not like to be told they're wrong, and they don't like to be told what not to do. So when somebody has a belief about a certain topic, and somebody with that opposing viewpoint is like, hey, I think you're wrong, blah, 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 well, that person is going to automatically just go into defensive mode. That's just a natural human instinct, regardless of what the opinion that they have is. Like, they're just going to bunker down, and they're just going to be like, oh, somebody's trying to, contradict my point of view. So now I have to, like, really, really, get a grip on this so that I can, because nobody wants to feel invalidated. Nobody wants to feel stupid. And nobody likes to feel like they are wrong. We all like to feel like we have the correct positions. So when I'm approaching people that are in disagreement with me on trans issues, but they're still open to the possibility of having that conversation, those are the types of people where I'll be like, well, here's the evidence to support the opposite of the viewpoint that you have. and then you leave them with that information. Let's see. There is a key. Spreading the message of educating way you do is very important. Thank you again, Christopher. Yeah, no, I genuinely have deliberated for many years on how I want to approach people when I'm trying to discuss certain topics, because I feel like we fall into a mindset where we just want to be right and we want to get that gratification of being right as quickly as possible. But doing so is not conducive to advancing a particular goal or trying to inform or educate somebody. That's not trying to, help educate somebody. That's trying to boost your own ego. And if we can learn as human beings that when we have to look at it, are we trying to do this because we're trying to boost our own ego, or are we doing this because we genuinely want to help? And once you can make that, when you make that distinction, it becomes a lot easier on how to frame and how to word the way that you're about to say something and how you're about to approach a subject with somebody that may disagree with you on something. So, trying to think where I was going with that. I'm not used to being on camera for more than 10 minutes at a time. And so, yeah, no, language is super important. The way that we phrase things and the way that we use certain words in certain ways at certain times with certain body languages, all of that factors in and matters. And I genuinely just want to get to a place where we can live in a world where trans people and LGBT people in general can just coexist in peace. And we don't have to have these discussions. We don't have to have these conversations anymore. It can just be like left-handed people. To my knowledge, as of this modern era, there are no normal people out there that are going around saying being left-handed is a defect or being left-handed is abnormal and immoral and wrong. Let's see. Too much. Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, this is my first live stream, so I am a little bit nervous because normally I have time to sit back and kind of calculate exactly what I'm going to be saying. But yeah, this should get easier as I go along. I plan on doing more of these live streams. I just kind of wanted to do this one as an introductory to try to, elaborate on where I plan on going with my channel in the future and things that I'm looking forward to personally, because again, 500 subscribers might not seem like a lot compared to other YouTubers out there, other content creators. You might look at somebody that has 300,000, 500,000 viewers on each video and go, 500 subscribers, really? But no, it's a big deal for me because I don't measure myself against other people. I only measure myself against myself. And the progress that I've seen that I've made, I mean, I've gained almost 100 subscribers in the past 2.5 months, when before that, it took me 7 years to get to 400 subscribers. Now, there was a big, long break that I took in between making videos that I did recently and back then. And actually, that's one thing that I did want to get into. So for anybody out there that did subscribe way back when I first started this channel and then just wondered why I kind of just fell off the map, the reason that I did that was mainly twofold. So I felt that we were moving in a direction where trans issues and trans rights were progressing fast enough that the sense of urgency and expediency of trying to get my message out there didn't make me feel so overwhelmingly like I needed to engage on an almost daily basis with this platform, because the rise of new social media and the fact that identity politics was kind of going away and the culture war was dying down and all of that, I didn't really feel that sense of urgency I did when I started the channel. When I first started the channel, I just had all these built up emotions bottled up inside of me, and I was just like, I gotta tell somebody something, because living in a conservative community is really hard, especially when I'm basically one of the only trans people in this area. Now, obviously, there's probably more other trans people out here. I'm not saying like I am the single only trans person in my local community. That's not what I'm saying. But the ratio of trans people to non-trans people is astronomically different from if you went into like a metropolitan area or a big city or somewhere, that's like far more progressive, like, Seattle or Portland or San Francisco. So my attempt at trying to basically navigate and survive the beginning stages of my transition involved me having to be incredibly cautious, and also really, really being careful with how I broach the subject with people, because in an area where over 70% of the population that I live in is registered Republican, that's not an exaggeration. It's actually over 70%. I knew that I was going to get a lot of resistance and a lot of pushback. And I didn't want to have to move. I didn't want to have to uproot my life, from my friends, my coworkers, my family, and move far away as if I was somehow like some damaged goods that needed to be disposed of because I wasn't useful anymore now that I was transgender and part of the woke mob. So those early days were very, very challenging for me. And I really, really, my heart goes out to anybody that has to endure some of the things that I have, because when you transition, especially without pretty much any support system, it's really bleak sometimes. And there were moments where my thoughts became quite dark. And I feel like it's through kind of sheer willpower alone that kind of pushed me through. But that's part of the reason why I started my channel in the first place, was because I wanted people that were trans to not have to go through the experiences that I did. I don't want people to know what it's like to be publicly harassed, to be put on the spot, to be, to have their property vandalized. Yes, my car was vandalized at one point. Nobody should have to go through that. And I don't want other trans people to feel like the way that I felt, which was, well, now that I realize I'm trans, I'm kind of screwed. Like, this is obviously, now I know that being trans isn't a choice. And so the only options are either I transition and pursue my authentic self and be happy, or I stay miserable for the rest of my life. And being miserable for the rest of my life was just not an option. Yeah, I do have some support networks. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it was just early on in those very first days of when I first started coming out, I pretty much got ostracized by everybody. And that changed over time as those same people started gradually coming back to me once the shock value had started to wear off. But initially, no, I was basically almost excommunicated from my community, in a sense. So yeah, and I knew that's the way that it was going to go. I knew this is how it's going to go. I didn't realize how bad it was going to be. I knew it was going to be hard, But it wasn't until I started socially transitioning, because what I did was I started taking estrogen kind of without telling anybody. I told like a few, very few close people, and those people seemed to be pretty accepting. And for like a few months there, I was just secretly taking estrogen and not telling anybody that I was transitioning. And I thought, okay, well, I'm starting to tell people, hey, this is what's going on. I'm on estrogen. I'm transitioning. And a lot of their responses were, oh, okay, like that's cool. Do what you want. We're here. And so I was like, okay, I think this is going to be a little easier than I initially built it up to be. But it wasn't until I socially transitioned, when I started presenting as female, dressing feminine, wearing makeup. I had to wear a wig back then because I was basically bald. Like the male pattern baldness was basically to the point where I had no hair. And it's different for every trans person. So again, I'm not a doctor, it's not medical advice, but several years into taking my HRT, my hormone replacement therapy, a lot of the hair grew back. And as you can see, like it's not 100% where it was before, I started going through male puberty. It's not going to reverse every single part of the what testosterone did to my body. But no, it regrew my hair. Like most of it came back. But yeah, so once I started socially transitioning, that's when it started to escalate to, being called out in public, and, having slurs hurled at me in public. And it was not a very fun time in my life, because I knew that every day when I got up and I had to go outside for whatever reason, whether it be to go to work, to get groceries, to get my oil changed, to just to have a meal at a restaurant, I knew somebody was going to say something. There was no way around it. And that's what happened. I would go to a restaurant sometimes, and, the people in the back, how some of those restaurants have those little windows where they pop out the food. Like, I would go into a restaurant, and like there would be 3 or 4 people just standing behind that little window, just staring at me the whole time, and whispering to themselves. I went into a restaurant one time, and I overheard one of the waiters tell one of the other waiters, hey, can you take this one? Because I don't want to deal with this. Like, and they said that basically with an earshot. They knew I could hear them. And it was humiliating, getting off of work at 1 a.m. in the morning and somebody slashed my car tires. Like, what? I was just like, this is my life now. I don't want people to have to go through any of that. I don't want people to even know what that's like. That's why I started this channel. I want people to have hope. I want people to see my content and know that things can get better. And if I can persevere through the worst of it, I know that anyone can persevere through all of it. But I don't want it to have to be the way that I experienced it. I want it to be better for other people. I want future generations to be able to feel confident and safe in themselves, whether they're trans or not. Or, let's see, wish more, thought like myself. Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, no, I kind of downplay a little bit, because I don't want to feel, I don't want people to perceive me as being like some sort of like hero necessarily, because I am just a person that just wants to live my life. But at the same time, I feel the need to tell people my experiences so they know how bad it can get. Like, I need people to know this is what we actually go through. when people turn on the news and they, all they hear is trans people, blah, 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 blah. And they don't know any trans people and they've never interacted with a trans people. That's their only source of information on trans people. And so they're building this whole construct, this whole mindset around what trans people are and how trans people behave. And that's all they have to go off of. So when the time finally comes, eventually, when they do encounter a trans person in person, that's the floodgates open and all the hatred comes out. And so, it's not going to help if I'm just preaching to the choir and just, rallying the corral around, people that already agree with me. You're going to have to reach out to the people that don't agree with you too, and get them to kind of move towards your side. And the only way that you can do that is by sharing and connecting with them your own personal experiences, and hope that that resonates enough with them so that they can connect with you and say, oh, yeah, no, I get it. I have that same experience. I'm not trans, but I get it. And once people have that kind of aha moment, that's when the bigotry kind of dissolves. That's when the illusion of what they've been told by mainstream media and society goes away. And they realize that they've kind of been tricked into believing a certain thing about a certain group of people. And so that's really where it comes from, people that used to be transphobes become allies. So you can't just write off people for being transphobic, because sometimes it's not always their fault. Sometimes it is. And unfortunately, there's always going to be a certain percentage of people. I would hope that that number is vanishingly small, but there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that are just going to be inherently bigoted, just the same way that you have with, other groups of people. And you would think like, oh, well, in this day and age, I would think that society would have moved past this about this group of people. But then there's always some small subgroup of people that are still in that mindset. So that's never going to go away. You can't stop an ideology. You can only mitigate its progress by educating and informing people about the reality of the group of people that supposedly they hate. And so that's really my goal and my mission, is just to educate and inform people by sharing my own experiences, even when it's just little silly mundane things like, hey, I blah, 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 not even trans related. It's just, hey, I'm just doing a thing that a normal person does and I'm trans. And people are like, oh, okay, yeah, like I drink coffee in the morning too. Like, when it's like, I remember watching a TED talk long ago where somebody was like, oh yeah, the gay agenda, let me show you what the gay agenda is. And it was like, I wake up in the morning and I make my bed and I shave and I get ready for work. And then I drive to work, and it just like went on and on. It's just a normal day. And he's like, and he concluded like, that was the gay agenda. Like, it's just a regular person. Like, so I feel like that's going to be the winning strategy going forward, is just getting to the place where people can just have the visibility of understanding that we're just regular people like everybody else. We just have a different life path than they do. And sorry, my contacts are, yeah, that is pretty funny. I should have worn my glasses. My contacts kind of wig out on me sometimes, so I can't really see very well. And so, yeah, I just want people to know that I'm just a normal person. And I want to make the world a better place. And I alone cannot make the world a better place. But I can do what I can to try to help. And that's why I started this YouTube channel. And that's why I'm going to continue to make videos. And maybe over time, this channel will move away from trans topics and talk about maybe something entirely different. I don't know. But right now, with the way things are, and the fact that it seems like we've kind of backslid a lot on trans rights, this is kind of the place where I need to be right now. This is where I need to focus my attention to help try to bring about more awareness to trans people and trans issues, because now I know how easy it is for, in such a short amount of time, for people to kind of go all in on bigotry when I thought that we were moving in the right direction. Let's see, we got a comment. When making the world a better place. Yeah, it's we all have a part in making the world a better place. Every single one of us has a small little part. It's not one person saves the world. It's not Skylar saves the world. You know, I wish that was the case. But it's not possible. It's not reasonable. It's not doable. There's only 24 hours in a day. I wish there was 32 hours in a day. I'd get a lot more stuff done, but there's not even enough coffee for it. So, but no, every little bit helps. Every little, it's like if you're a cisgender person and you're watching this and you're out in public and you hear somebody say something transphobic, just in like, you know, general conversation, like, you can say, hey, that's not cool. Like, maybe, like, you know, try to like inform them, like, hey, you know, point it out. Like, I don't think that what you said was very nice, or like, here's a reason. Like, don't just be like, you're a bigot. Just kind of like nudge them into the direction of being like, maybe let's try to have a little more compassion for others. You know, let's try to embody the values that we supposedly are trying to represent. You know, bigotry and hatred have no place in our society. There's no purpose for it. There's no reason for it. It only does harm. And so trying to get people on board with being more compassionate, that's just a win-win for everybody, because once you get somebody on board with compassion, once you get people to the place where they see people as not the other, but just as a mirror version of themselves in another soul, then you get people to the place where they can apply that to any situation, not just trans people, but, you know, and we will get there. We will get to that utopia. I believe that better things are possible in this world. I believe that we will one day achieve a perfect society. How we get there, I don't know how we get there, but I know that that place is real and that place is possible. And I will do what I can, even if I don't see it in my lifetime. I will always try to do my best to help make that world possible. All right, Christopher. It's been me the past year. I have the knowledge now because of creators like yourself. I won't stop spreading the right message to my friends and colleagues. Perfect. Yes, that's exactly what we need. You know, right now for trans people, existence is resistance. Like, just by the very fact that I exist as a trans person is a form of protest. I never thought that we would get to this place, but here we are. I am a protest. I am a walking protest by just existing. So, yeah, let's work together, and, you know, better things are possible. So, yeah. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll probably wrap up the stream here a little bit. We're about to hit the 45-minute mark. I didn't want to make this like super long. And then I'll plan on doing this again. This was really fun. Yeah, I'll work through my schedule and see when I can do more of these more often. I know some YouTubers do like 3 or 4 hour streams. I do not have the energy for that right now. I mean, maybe I can work myself up to it, but trying to talk for 4 hours straight it's not so much the talking. I mean, I've worked in sales before, so I'm used to talking a lot, but to sit there and come up with content for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours straight, that part's a little difficult. So, and it really comes down to the engagement part, which is why I kind of sent out the notification a couple days early to have more people. So when you're on the live stream, when you engage in the comments and when you ask me questions, that actually helps the algorithm and gives me more watch time and more metrics to help push my channel overall to more people. So just by showing up, liking the stream, and commenting, you're actually tremendously helping my channel overall with this. Part of the reason why I want to do a live stream eventually anyway. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough subscribers so that it wasn't going to be just me talking into a camera for 4 hours. All right, let's see. Just take care. Remember a little. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that, Christopher. Just glad people like you are vocal. It helps us stuck in a red state, having to balance existence and safety. Yes, my heart goes out to everybody that's in a red state right now. It's absolutely appalling what I'm seeing going on in those states right now. And, even though I live in a conservative community, I'm in a relatively blue state. So statewide, there's not really a mandate for anti-trans policies. But in some of those deep South red states, I cry. Some of these stories that I see, some of these news cycles where I see what the laws are and what they're trying to impose and what they're trying to implement, I genuinely start crying because I know that's going to have a real world effect on a real person. And the things that person is now going to have to deal with on top of all the challenges that were already present just for being trans, it makes me feel like, when is enough enough? When are people going to realize that we're just regular people? How bad does it have to get? I don't want it to get to the worst possible scenario before people come to the realization of, oh, maybe we were thinking of this the wrong way. Let's not go down that path. History has already shown us what happens when people go down that path. Let's learn from history and not make the same mistakes again. All right, so we're at the 45-minute mark. I think that's pretty good for my first stream. So again, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please remember to subscribe down below and like the stream. Also really helps. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And y'all take care now. Bye.